right? I'm sure you can understand that the compelling of language is an issue.
So what gender do you think you are?
Well, I'm a male.
Okay, well, I think you're a woman.
No, legally I'm a male.
Oh,
it says on my driver's license that I'm a male.
Okay, so that's your sex.
No, yeah, I'm also a male.
It's your sex.
It says on my carrier certificate that I'm a male. Gender. Some legal documentations say gender.
What if I say I don't believe you?
It doesn't matter.
Exactly, it doesn't matter if you don't believe me.
No, it doesn't matter because biologically...
What gender do you think I am?
I would assume you're female.
Yeah, so you're making assumptions.
Yes.
I identify as non-binary.
Hey, I don't, respectfully, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Now, let me ask you this. What would you say if I have...
It matters what pronouns you use for me. It matters how I'm socialized in society. It matters my gender expression. It matters the way that I'm allowed to express myself. It matters what bathroom I use. It matters who I'm allowed to live with. It affects every aspect of my life. So you saying...
What pronouns should I use?
You should use they, them pronouns. So you saying that you don't believe me...
What if I don't?
If you don't, I would consider that disrespectful, and that's actually an act of violence to misgender trans...
It's an act of violence.
That is an act of violence to intentionally misgender someone, yes.
Here we come to the issue, and this is why I'm out here. You just said that's an act of violence. That means it's an actionable offense. That means it's a crime.
When it comes to elected Democrats and the corporate legacy news media, has there ever been anything surprising about their reactions to the murder of Charlie Kirk? It's a rhetorical question, obviously, because, of course, there hasn't. They react to everything in exactly the same way. They might as well be reading the instructions on a shampoo bottle. Shift the blame, falsely frame, lather, rinse, repeat. Has any elected Democrat or fake news performance artist had an original thought in the last 15 years? This, too, is a rhetorical question, because of course they haven't. People who are capable of original thought don't need a list of official talking points memos handed to them each morning. They don't traffic in the exact same words and phrases at the exact same time, month upon month, year after year. All they know is the message, and we safeguard the message by sticking to the formula. Shift the blame, falsely frame, lather, rinse, repeat. We shift the blame by assigning culpability to someone on the right. Does it matter if that's the opposite of the truth? It does not. The truth is not part of the formula. We don't concern ourselves with what really happened or who really did it or what their actual motivations were. What does this look like? Freaking journalism? LOL. Once we've assigned material culpability to someone on the right, you know what happens next. Yep. Announce that it is ultimately Trump's fault. It must have been the bad orange man's divisive rhetoric that did it. And obviously, he is making it worse by not bringing the country together. Whether it's a hurricane or a brush fire or an assassination, the formula never changes. Shift the blame, falsely frame, lather, rinse, repeat. And the false framing is even easier than the blame shifting. Just declare a moral equivalency where none really exists. Stare into the camera lens, make a very sober face, and say, both sides are doing it. Both sides need to lower the temperature. You know, because you should be wanting to find common cause and understanding. You should be eager to sit around the old campfire and sing Kumbaya with people who want you dead and would be happy to dance the merengue across your grave. Why are you conservatives so damned intolerant? Shift the blame, falsely frame, lather, rinse, repeat. It's Wednesday, the 17th of September. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where if you don't like and share this video and subscribe to the channel and send me a very generous super thanks, you are doing violence on me. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about the left lighting its own funeral pyre and forming a circular firing squad. But first, I want to open the main segment with a brief anecdote. The night before last, I was watching one of Steven Crowder's Change My Mind videos, which, as you probably know already, is pretty much the same premise as Charlie Kirk's Prove Me Wrong videos, where you go to a college campus, you set up a table, you say some true thing about the world, and you invite people up to come and scream abuse at you. This was one of the earlier ones that I was watching. YouTube says it's 7 years old, so based on the way that YouTube counts years, it's either from the second half of 2016 or the first half of 2017. And the premise of the video is, there are only two genders, change my mind. Which I believe is the first installment in what wound up being at least a 3-part series. And the second person who comes and sits down and talks to Steven is an overweight, buzz-cutted lesbian who introduces herself as, if I remember correctly, the president of the campus LGBT Alliance or some shit like that. She stays up there for over 20 minutes. She monopolizes nearly half of the episode Oh, wait, but she's not actually a she, is she? She's actually a they-them, because she identifies as non-binary, you see, and she takes it upon herself to educate Mr. Crowder on how preferred pronouns work. And remember, this is 2016, 2017. Most people in the real world still hadn't ever heard of this preferred pronoun nonsense yet, and at one point, Miss They-them casually remarks to Stephen that if you know my preferred pronouns, and then you use different pronouns when you talk to me or about me, then you are committing an act of violence. And you can see Crowder physically recoil as the words come out of her mouth, because clearly he has never heard a crazy thing like that before, just as most of us never had in those days. And he is completely dumbfounded, as any normal person would be. So he asks her to clarify. You're saying if a person uses words you don't like, that is tantamount to committing an act of violence upon you. And she confirms, yep, that is exactly what I'm saying. So what does this anecdote tell us? First, it tells us that ideas like this were already widely believed on American college campuses 7 or 8 years ago. And as we know all too well, most bad ideas originate on college campuses. But it tells us, secondly, that we were already headed down a slippery slope back when most of us had never even heard of this notion that another person, based on their weird, creepy sex preferences, can demand of you that you speak your own native language in a non-standard way that makes absolutely no sense. And if you decline to do that, well, it's the same thing as punching them in the face. Because once you have made that leap, you don't have a lot of distance left to travel between that point A and the point B of, you have committed a perceived act of linguistic violence upon me, therefore I am now entitled to commit an actual act of real physical violence upon you. So is there any real mystery in how we got from that point less than a decade ago to the reality that we live in today, where transgenders and their fellow travelers keep committing acts of terrorist murder with ever-increasing frequency in the name of transgenderism? I would submit there is not. And of course, we had the intermediate step of people who don't speak the language in the way that you demand aren't just perpetrating violence upon you, but they are also fascists and National Socialists. And in a world where fascists and National Socialists have replaced the devil as the accepted cultural shorthand for what pure evil looks like in the mind of a confused young person with no moral center of which to speak, you can bet your sweet ass that very quickly adds up to a license to kill. Fascists are committing acts of violence against my community, so murdering them isn't just a valid option, it is indeed a moral imperative. And less than a decade is all it took. You know, I've watched an intolerable amount of leftist influencer YouTube content these past few days, and it's not difficult to see how a person's brain can get very quickly and irretrievably broken by living in that ecosphere of rage and malevolence on a daily basis. As far as elected Democrats and the mainstream fake news media go, I think those people have been stacking the wood on their own funeral pyre for a good number of years now. In the past 7 days, they have probably accelerated the process. You might say they've poured a shitload of gasoline on themselves and they're just about ready to strike the match. But I'm seeing a different thing in the online leftist influencer space, and there's an angle there that I think nobody has caught on to yet. As we know all too well, these video sharing platforms have created a very warped, very perverse incentive structure whereby if you traffic in the correct, fashionable, leftist, socialist ideas, that is how you get the most likes and subs and views and consequently, the most money. But there is no happy equilibrium of leftist fashionableness where you can sort of level off at 20,000 feet and just stay there, because that's the thing about leftist radicalism. It always begets and demands more radicalism. You can't make a living in this field of endeavor by being a centrist Democrat, to the extent that there even is such a thing anymore. If you want to keep getting more likes and more views and more money, if you want to drive the engagement that in turn drives the algorithm and keeps your channel and your videos popping up at the top of everybody's feed, you have to keep dialing up the radicalism and keep saying crazier and crazier things. I mean, if you need an example, just look at Joy Reid since she became a full-time YouTuber. She is as dumb as a bag of hammers. She's never had an original thought in her entire life. She is incapable of viewing the world or anything in it except through the prism of racial grievance. She freely admits she's got every job she's ever had by being a DEI hire, so she's got no recourse for maintaining her media footprint except by saying crazier things in today's video than she said in yesterday's video. Jim Acosta, Don Lemon. There's a whole basket full of former mainstream fake news performance artists, intellectual dullards, each one of them, whom you can put under that heading. But they aren't the ones who've caught my attention these past few days. The ones who have caught my attention are the leftist content creators, some of whom appear quite young, who have found themselves impelled to make actual apology videos because they made the terrible mistake of saying that Charlie Kirk's murder was a terrible thing, and his wife didn't deserve to lose her husband, and their kids don't deserve to grow up without a father. Some of those creators in some of those apology videos have a look in their eyes that I have only ever seen before in honest-to-God hostage videos from people having guns held to their heads in a jungle somewhere. A look of genuine, sheer terror of what might happen to them if they don't say the words their captors want them to say. It is not a look of, I'm afraid I might get fewer likes and views if I don't say the fashionable thing. It is more a look of, I feel like I have to disavow the contents of my last video, the one where I tried to show a modicum of basic human decency over a man being murdered, because I am afraid of people in my own audience hunting me down and causing me actual physical harm if I don't say the words they expect me to say. Therefore, I very deeply apologize for my previous unacceptable display of human empathy, and I reaffirm my belief that Charlie Kirk was a fascist bigot who richly deserved to be killed for saying words I don't like. What does it look like when a person suddenly realizes they are trapped in a prison of their own making? It looks just like that. What does it look like when the online left forms a circular firing squad? It looks just like that. I'm done. That's all I've got. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Get off my lawn.